left hands in the dough, fully pot. Sticky fingers, palm looking, the block stay hot. Side rack, shadow boxing, swinging at the air, undefeated in delusion. Reality don't care, Jupiter creeping, got the whole crew shook. Predator rhymes, got a band from the book. Josh Block at the hill, bottle in his clutch. Captain of a ship that's been sinking too much. Over Navy rattling, can't step to the throne. Worry top the mic, let them reap what they've sown.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for stopping by the channel again today. We've got a big Tophia update. By now, a lot of you are probably already aware of it, but who would I be if I didn't make sure we were all up on the lolcow news? So we're going to do a quick video just to make sure everybody's up to date. As you guys are probably aware, Tophia has been living in a homeless shelter for the past couple of months. After the unfortunate incident with Brother Chu in the car, Tophia was being put up in a motel for a while, but obviously that couldn't last forever, and eventually she had to make her way over to the homeless shelter, which she frequently complained about because she didn't like that it had rules. God forbid anybody imposes any structure of any kind on Tophia. She didn't like that they had a curfew because according to her she was a grown-ass woman, and for a place that was giving her free housing and keeping her off the streets at night, of course she didn't seem super grateful. But big news came out just about 2 days ago as of the time of this recording, that led people to believe that maybe she wasn't going to be lying her head in the shelter anymore. She put up a story on her TikTok that reads as follows. I have an emergency. Can anyone help me out and send to my PayPal? I'd appreciate it. I know what the trolls are going to say, but I need safe shelter for the night. My Cash App is down. My PayPal link is my, I guess she meant to say second link. So it's absolutely wild to me that she's in a situation where she even has to preface something like this with, I know what the trolls are going to say. And by saying that, Toph, you're almost admitting that you kind of know what you did wrong, you know? It's like when you got in trouble in school and your dad had to come pick you up, and as soon as he got there, before he could even say anything, you're like, Dad, I know what you're going to say. It's like what you're really admitting there is that you already know what you did wrong. And if you'll excuse me rambling for a little bit, I just wanted to throw out there, while it's not any large sum of money by any margin, Toph does make a decent amount of money on TikTok. Much like Nova, she's one of the cows that actually does have money coming in on a regular basis. If you guys are ever unlucky enough to be on TikTok when Toph goes live, and you click on one of those lives, she gets money like the whole time. People are constantly sending her donations in the same way that people buy a decent amount of Nova Cord and get a lot of his cameos. So she does have some income coming in, and the fact that she's living in a shelter, other than buying food for herself, she doesn't have any actual bills. I don't know if you guys had a high school job or anything like that, but I remember my first job in high school before I even had to pay for like car insurance or anything like that. It felt like that money built up so quickly because you didn't have bills chipping away at all your income. Even if you were only making like $8 or $9 an hour, it would build up so fast I was buying any video game I wanted, you know? So it's like she knows that living in a homeless shelter is not a permanent situation. She knows that eventually she's going to need to support herself with some type of housing as a perfectly healthy adult who doesn't have any reason not to be able to. There's also probably a lot of benefits out there that she could apply for that she simply hasn't, because she's literally too lazy to do the paperwork and go down to the offices. So she's got all this money coming in, and God forbid she even tries to put away a little bit of a rainy day fund in case anything like this ever happens so that she would have a buffer to get herself a hotel room or something like that. No, she literally has to spend every dime she has on like $75 Labubus, random TikTok shop t-shirts, limited YouTuber items from Walmart, and of course copious amounts of DoorDash. So as far as I know what the trolls are going to say go, it's because you know you've been spending your money poorly for months on end now, and everybody else knows that too, and now you begging again just makes you look really, really greedy. She then goes on not long after that to say, and those is spelled T-H-O-E-S, which is interesting. I guess Toph would probably say me calling her out for a spelling error is racist. But I would flip that on its head, Toph. I would say you're the one who's racist for thinking that there's anybody in the world who's incapable of learning to spell. I think everybody on Earth is smart enough to learn how to spell if they just try hard enough. But I digress. And for those asking if I'm okay, no, I'm not okay. I keep being put in danger. I'll have to sleep outside in a tent. I do not get help. Oh, if I do not get help, I can't explain the whole situation because it's personal. I'd like to not give my personal business out there for my safety. So, Toph, your entire life, your entire quote-unquote job is putting your personal business out there. You call out your family members. You drop all this information about your quote-unquote PTSD and your brother's friends and Mama Chu's health, so let's not act like all of a sudden you have this huge issue with revealing personal information. You're basically a TikTok drama content creator. That's your whole bread and butter. And I also just have to say, Toph, not to sound super unsympathetic here, but you're not being put in danger objectively. you're putting yourself in danger. You haven't had a job in years, so you don't have any income to pay for any housing for yourself. You got put up in a free shelter, and you've done nothing but constantly complain and do everything that you can to skirt every minor rule of the shelter. These are situations that you're exclusively putting yourself in. People asked her for a while after Brother Chu passed away why she didn't get like a small studio or one-bedroom apartment for her and Mama Chu, and she said that's because she was saving for a house while continuing to blow all of her money all the time. And if I'm talking a lot about how much she blows her money on bullshit, just wait until you see what she did just a little bit later on after being kicked out of the shelter. So not long after that second story, someone dropped a comment on one of Tophia's complaining about the shelter's rules videos with a photo of her sitting at a slot machine at a casino. And my God, if there's anything that I don't want to see somebody who's claiming to be broke and begging for money doing, it's going to the casino. I would actually literally rather see her blowing her money at the Walmart or something like that, where at least she's getting some type of a physical item in exchange for the money that she's spending, than at a casino where she might as well just be sitting there with a lighter burning it, just throwing it away. To be totally honest with you, this picture was going around on Twitter, and before I confirmed it on my end, I thought it might have been like an AI picture or maybe Photoshop. There's something about the way that like she's sitting in the chair and the way that something about the way this slot machine behind her doesn't really line up with her head, I guess, that made me think that maybe it was fake. And people do like to do stuff like that sometimes. I've seen some edits of Toph and Nova in situations that, you know, people will start confirming it, and I try to hold off, and then all of a sudden a few hours later it's like, oh, that was fake. It turns out that diaper pic wasn't real. So I always try to be cautious before I, like, I guess report on anything, not to make it sound too serious, just because I don't want to put out information that turns out not to be true. But this one did turn out to be true. This picture is not AI, this picture is not Photoshop, and the way that we know that is that Toph actually went on to confirm that the picture was true herself. She started getting probably thousands of chats, messages, comments on every single video bringing up this gambling allegation. And to be totally honest with you, if she were smart, she would have just totally ignored it, or maybe just dropped a story being like, wow, you really believe whatever AI slop the trolls put out, right? But she's not smart, and she has this complex where she needs to justify everything that she does, even when it's objectively totally wrong and a completely bad idea. So she puts up this story in response to it. It goes like this. Y'all are nosy. No, I didn't gamble my money. This girl gave me money to play at the casino. She said, do you want to go to this casino? I said, sure, but I don't have any money because I wanted to get out. She pulled money out that she had to play. I don't understand why y'all are everywhere stalking me to spread false rumors. I'm broke, yet y'all say I'm spending money. Make it make sense. So, there's a lot there, Toph, that I want you to make sense for me. First of all, there's no fairy godmother that gives you money to play at the casino. That makes absolutely no sense at all. Second of all, you've been living at a homeless shelter in a really poor part of New Mexico. So, my question for you is, who are you even around that would have so much money that they would just throw money at you to play at the casino? You know what I mean? Like, everybody that you know right now is also homeless. Everybody that you know right now is literally also living at a homeless shelter with you. So what situation did you just come across some magical new girlfriend who not only has their own money to play at the casino, but then also has money to give you just to have fun? The second part that doesn't make sense is her saying, I don't understand why y'all are everywhere stalking me to spread false rumors. This is something that I hear Nova and Cyrax say a lot too. They'll be like, why do you stalk me? Why can't I go anywhere without having photos taken of me and stuff like that? Well, here's the thing, man. One, you've done everything that you possibly can for years on end now to try to make yourself the most known quantity that you possibly can. You wanted nothing more than to be an internet celebrity, and now to a certain extent you are, and you're mad that people see you doing things that you don't want them to see, but you're totally cool when people see you doing things that you do want. The thing about the internet and celebrity in general is that you cannot curate exactly what people see of you. They're gonna see everything once you become that famous, you know what I mean? Like, celebrities get upset at like TMZ and the paparazzi sometimes when they get a picture of them from a bad angle. You don't just get to only put images out of yourself or information out about yourself that you think, you know, is flattering to you. Once people know you, they know you, and they're going to find out whatever they can about you, regardless of whether it's good or bad. The other thing about this is that not only are they not stalking you because you're just well known, so yeah, if somebody comes across you, and you've literally doxed your location, by the way, so like people even know where to be on the lookout for you. But that aside, spreading false rumors. I mean, it's not a false rumor. The allegation was Tophia is at the casino playing the slots, and you're literally admitting right here you're at the casino playing slots. Nobody was making comments saying, "Hey, look, Tophia is at the casino playing slots specifically with her own money that nobody gave her." Like, no, the allegation was just that you're broke and homeless, so literally if somebody gives you $1, if somebody gives you 50 cents, the last thing in the world that you should ever do with it is gamble it. Here you are admitting you were there gambling it. So what about these rumors was false, Toph? What part of it wasn't true? Did they say you were playing roulette and you were at the slots instead? Did they say Tophia's busting it down at the craps table for a patty melt and that wasn't true? You were busting it down at video poker instead? Like, I don't I just don't know what about this isn't true. And of course, Toph, being as tone deaf as ever, not long after that, reposts a video on her story of someone who I think is Cardi B, saying that she needs this outfit ASAP. First of all, Toph, I can't imagine any outfit that would be both flattering to you and Cardi B's body type. I don't think there's a whole lot of overlap there. And second of all, when people are accusing you of being wasteful with your money while being homeless, shitposting your window shopping on your story probably isn't going to help you beat those allegations. And then, of course, after that, it was time for a blacked-out screen Tophia high horse I'm a victim rant.
Let me explain, but I'm going to explain it, and I'm going to condense it very, very small, because I'm not going to give up details. So anyway, some stuff happened. I was being dropped off at another shelter, and this girl's like, "Hey, do you want to stay with me in my motel room so you don't have to stay in the shelter?" She didn't feel it was right for me to stay in the shelter, so she asked me if I could stay with her at the hotel room. I was like, sure, because that is very kind of someone to offer. I had been going through a really rough, couple of days, that is very horrible considering my situation and what I have to constantly keep going through, so.
I just want to say real quick, because she didn't think it was right for me to have to stay at the shelter, is kind of a funny way for Toph to frame that. It's not right for anybody to have to stay at the shelter. Oh, I shouldn't have to stay at the shelter because I'm going through a tough couple of days. Toph, it's a homeless shelter. Everyone there is going through a tough couple of days. That's literally the whole thing. No one who is having a good day or a good string of days is staying at the homeless shelter. So the idea that, like, you shouldn't have to be there because you're having a hard time, and what, other people just deserve to be there because? Like, there's a running theme with Tophia where she seems to think that she's better than other homeless people. Like, she's like, I have no money, but I'm not broke, and I don't work, but I'm not lazy, and I may stay at the homeless shelter, but I'm not one of these homeless-ass people out here. And it's like, Toph, you literally are the same as everybody else there. If I'm being totally honest, I think you're worse than everybody else there, because at least some of the people there, like, fell on hard times through situations that were totally out of their control. Maybe they have addiction or something like that. Maybe they had, like, a domestic situation going on at home that they had to escape. They're not actually making money for doing absolutely nothing nearly every single day and then blowing it on Shein pajamas. There's a lot of people at the shelter that if they were in your situation and they could make even a small amount of money off of TikTok or YouTube, they'd save and scrounge for a couple weeks and you'd probably never see them at the shelter again. So I just really don't like this victim complex that she has where she deserves not to have to be at a shelter because she's having a hard time, as if everybody else there is just there by choice and they're having a totally chill week.
Yeah, I really just wanted to get a good night's sleep.
This heat is no joke.
So within a couple hours of being kicked out of her shelter, Tophia goes on to post this. Already getting sick and dehydrated. Y'all think it's funny, my situation, all I have done is been to people who deserve it. So I don't even know really what she's trying to say here. I just need housing that everyone else gets it with a job, and yet I was in a violent crime. Me and my mom and my mother was shot, had a health problems, but can't get housing is crazy. Y'all act like you know, but you don't. So once again, this is just basically Toph saying anybody who has anything, you have it just because it was handed to you. Like, it was easy, you didn't struggle for it, you didn't scrounge for it, you haven't had your own problems where maybe you had to choose between getting groceries and getting school shoes for your kid. Like, no one else in the United States, nobody else in the world really, has ever had a hard time financially. She says, I just need housing, that's all. Everyone else gets it with a job, and yet, like, she really thinks that anybody who has even a little bit more than her has it easy. Things are basically just handed to them. Like, I don't know, she acts like people work like 30 hours a week at a fast food place, and then they live in a nice 2-bedroom in a nice part of town, and they can pay all their bills and buy their groceries, and they have a little bit of money left over to, go out to the movies and stuff. And like, obviously we all know that's just not reality. That's just not the world we live in. Even if you want to get by at like barely above the poverty line, living paycheck to paycheck, you still have to struggle and scrounge pretty hard. I've had to work 2 jobs while I was going to school multiple times throughout my life just to get by. And any time that we talk about Tophiachu in any of the live streams, people tell me tons of stories about how hard they've had to work just to have basic necessities. It's like a universal experience at this point that you have to work really hard just to keep your head above water. So it always really grinds my gears and rubs me the wrong way when she says that other people have it easy and that things were handed to them and that she's the only one who has to struggle. I also hate that she then goes on to do the next thing on the Tophiachu bingo board, which is bringing up the violent crime to try to sympathy bait. I don't want to take away from the fact that it was probably a terrifying situation for her to see her family members harmed and to be in danger like that, but I will say, out of the 3 of them, she was the one that came out the most unscathed. Yeah, I'm sure she does have nightmares about it. And I would say, yeah, I'm sure she's worried about Mama Chu's health, even though I know she definitely isn't. She doesn't give a fuck about Mama Chu. But her brother literally passed away as a result of the incident, and her mom is, like, probably irreparably damaged, especially at the age that she is. And Toph is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, she's totally fine. She's going to the casino, she's playing games, she's making thirst traps, she's making mommy ASMR. She doesn't exactly seem to be bothered by this situation on a day-to-day basis at all. It seems like it's just a trap card that she can lay down to get people to give her money. And then my last comment about this is kind of on the same part. She says, the whole thing about the shooting incident, and then she says, but can't get housing is crazy. Now, I grew up in Philly, so maybe I have a little bit more personal experience in terms of like actually knowing people who have been through crimes like this, but honestly, no matter where in the country you are, you know people who have had bad things happen to them, and unfortunately, there's really not much of a safety net where if something really tragic happens to you, you're just taken care of for the rest of your life. That's not how it works. There's not really a situation like, I know people who have had their house burned down. And if they didn't have insurance, they're going to live with a family member now. Like, it's not like the city just says, hey, that was really tragic, so we're going to give you a new house. You've been through your hard thing for the year, and now you probably shouldn't have to go through anything else difficult, so we're just going to take care of you. Kick your feet up, watch some Netflix. We'll let you rest for a little while. It would be really nice if it was that way, but unfortunately, after something tragic happens to people, the next couple months are the hardest couple months of their life because that's when they have to pick themselves up and put their life back together. But Toph has no desire to do that. She feels entitled to being permanently given tons of accommodations and just basically to not have to work and to be taken care of, whether it's by family, whether it's by the police department, whether it's by the government, whether it's by her audience on TikTok. She feels that because something bad happened to her, she should never have to work again, and everything should be provided for her, and that is just not the world that we live in. Like I said, usually after a tragedy happens, that's the hardest part because you have maybe a week, maybe 2 if your job is kind enough to you about it, to take a little bit of time off and spend some time with your family, and then you have to get back out there, and in a lot of situations, I don't know, if her and Brother Chu were splitting rent, at the end of the month, her landlord's not going to say, oh yeah, only give me half because I know something bad happened. No, it's like, well shit, not only did I just lose my brother, but now I have to figure out how to come up with the other half of the rent. I have to double my income. But she just doesn't have any understanding of that because she doesn't want to have any understanding of that. She can't think any further ahead than her next Shein delivery, going to one of those Amazon lockers because she doesn't even have an address to ship it to. And her lack of understanding and her idea that this is all somehow everybody else's fault just goes to be shown more and more in some of these late night faceless ramblings that she's been putting out.
To the casino, she was around gambling, so she gambled most of her money because she gave me 80. And then she said, she was like, oh girl, we spent 400. She said we gambled 400. We didn't win really nothing. Well, I didn't win anything and neither did she, but she said I gambled most of my money because she's going into a program for a year that'll help her get housing. So yeah, that's why she wasn't in the photo because she was walking around gambling, and that's
So we're supposed to believe this lady who is so broke that she needs to go into a program to get her housing handed you a random $80 to run around the casino and blow. And then y'all didn't even hang out together. She was like, oh, take this $80 and we'll go gamble separately and we'll meet back up when we both run out of money. What are you talking about? Toph also throws in the beginning there, she's like, oh yeah, she gambles because she grew up around gambling. Toph, you cannot judge her for gambling irresponsibly, as you gamble irresponsibly, allegedly with her money. Now, I don't think this lady was real to begin with. I think Toph just had a little bit of TikTok money and thought it would be fun to go gamble, or honestly, maybe she found a 20 on the ground and decided to go play around with it. But I highly doubt this gambling fairy godmother even exists. But it's so funny that even in her made-up story where somebody's kind enough to give her some money to go have a fun night out, she still has to come across as judgmental to that person in her retelling of this total fantasy.
It's the reason why I'm not gonna, film somebody without their knowledge and put them on my platform, considering the fact that she was somewhere's gambling. We took the lift back because we had to meet someone else who was staying with us because he has cancer and they couldn't find him a place to stay. There was a whole issue with that too. There was a caseworker on the Reddit that had already explained everything that I'm trying to explain to you. It is very hard to get housing when places want 2 to 3 times the rent.
Yeah, it's very hard to get housing when you're spending your last $80 on gambling at the casino. That's definitely a factor as well, Toph.
You're not going to make that working anywhere, even if you get a job. And to say that I'm making an excuse to get a job, no, I'm not. I got paid $2,400 to do an ad for Temu. I'm having a hard time getting that payment. I cannot get that payment.
I've never understood the argument of if I get a job, it won't be enough money for me to have the thing that I really want, so I might as well just not get the job. Like, I don't know, I guess I've always been of the mentality that, like, some money is better than no money. Some money is better than no money. Like, I would rather work at the McDonald's, and I have worked in, fast food restaurant type places, and make, like, far below what I would need to live on my own, than just sit around making absolutely nothing at all. Like, at least you could kind of save some money up, and maybe you can't pay for your own housing, maybe you have to stay with somebody, but at least you can pay with your own food. This idea that she's doing nothing to educate herself, get any additional job qualifications, or get anything to put herself in a situation where she could potentially make more money, but she's also going to hold out and not get a job until she gets a job where she can make enough to live in like a 5-bedroom townhouse and have everything she wants, just doesn't track for me. It doesn't make any sense.
Once I get that payment, I could work on getting a car. That's the thing. I can only slowly work on getting things. Right now, I'm slowly trying to work on getting housing, which is very hard.
Wait, so her excuse for not getting a job was that whatever the job paid her wouldn't be enough to have 3 times the rent, so she wouldn't be able to get the housing anyway. But what about the car? You don't need to make 3 times the monthly car payment to get the car. You could save up a couple $1,000s from literally any job since you have no expenses, and you could buy yourself a used car outright. Or if you were really impatient, you could save up like $1,200 from like 2 checks from even a really shitty job, and you could make a down payment, and at least you could have a car. And you were sleeping in a car before, so that would be something. She's disproving her own argument as she makes it. Like, she's totally, completely tone deaf.
To get housing. There are other people getting housing before me that have no jobs, nothing, but I'm a victim of a crime. I deserve to be in a house and be.
No, Toph, no. Being a victim of a crime doesn't mean that you deserve anything. That's not the world that we live in. And also, you don't know everybody else's circumstances. So just because somebody came into the shelter after you and then left the shelter before you does not mean that their life is easier than yours, and it doesn't mean that, like, the housing fairy just chose them and decided to skip over you again. You don't know what circumstances any of them are going through. You don't know what help or what benefits they've applied for or what they're eligible for. So I really just hate the idea that any time that anybody else gets out of the shelter, she's like, see, that should have been me, and my situation is worse than theirs, and this isn't fair. Like, it's such a child's mindset.
Safe, but I'm being put in danger constantly. People have to stop acting like they know solutions that don't work. It does not work. I am telling you, what you suggest does not work. I literally know a couple people, considering that I've met a couple people at the shelter that are working and still can't afford a place to live. That's not logical. especially with murder cookie. Sorry, that's what someone called it at the shelter. It is high in crime here in Albuquerque, and it is a very dangerous city to live in. And yet people want to drive around, think everything's a joke, laugh, and be funny and be like, I have a bed, I have a house, I have this, I have that. There are children out in the streets. There are children out in this heat that have no place to live. And you think that being homeless is just some sort of joke because someone is lazy.
So she always makes this argument too, and I just want to clarify. It's not that anybody thinks that being homeless is funny. Cyrax will say this too. He'll be like, why do you guys want to see me homeless so bad? And it's like, I don't think the idea of homelessness is funny. I've known friends who have gotten evicted from their places because they couldn't make rent, or people who had, a really bad flood in their house and had nowhere to go, and I didn't think that was funny at all. I don't even really just think I don't even really think I would say that it's funny, I guess, that Toph is homeless. I just think that it's inevitable because she refuses to work. Same thing with Cyrax. I don't really even. It's not that I think the homeless arc is going to be funny. It's just that I know that it's inevitable because you're an adult who's doing nothing to ever be able to support yourself. You could get a job and you could go on one of those roommate websites and try to find people to stay with and maybe only pay a couple $100 a month to have a roof over your head. It's not ideal, but it's better than the shelter. But there's something about people who constantly say that the solution to all of their problems is that they get to do nothing and everybody else in the world just has to pitch in and support them, that makes you want to see those people stop getting free shit. They come off as ungrateful, lazy, and entitled. And yeah, there's a little bit of schadenfreude to seeing ungrateful, lazy, entitled people finally get their comeuppance. So no, Toph, we don't think homelessness is funny. We think you having nothing when you do nothing to ever provide anything for yourself is just what's fair.
That's not how it works. I'm just trying to get the resources to get a place. I'm not trying to have my First Amendment rights taken away by being told if I take something, then I can't. I want.
Oh, God, did she have a free consultation with the law offices of Goblin, Goblin, and Goblin? Now she's misquoting amendments too? My lord. The First Amendment is about free speech and freedom to practice religion. Nobody's stopping you from doing any of that, Toph. You pretty freely speak on TikTok all fucking day. Look at how small the bars in her story have gotten because there's so many of them.
Freedom, and I'm tired of having stipulations with me. So, I want to address something somebody said. Someone said, your intention shouldn't be gambling. What did I literally say? I literally said that she offered to go to the casino. I said, sure, because I wanted to get out. I wanted to go out.
Yeah, your intention shouldn't be wanting to go out. In all the brokest moments of my life, the absolute last thing that I think about doing is going to the bar or going to the movie theater and stuff like that. It really sucks having to work for months on end and not being able to go blow off some steam, but sometimes when you're dead broke, that's just the way it is. And if I was lucky enough when I was really, really broke to have a friend who was like, hey, I have some spare money, do you want to go to the casino and gamble with me? I have $80 with your name on it. I would probably be like, hey man, I really appreciate the gesture, but honestly, if you want to go out and do something tonight, let's go get dinner. I would rather have food in my stomach than go feed a bunch of cash I'm never going to see again into a slot machine.
Did I say I wanted to go gamble? Where were my intentions? And to literally say that I still gambled the money, of course, because that's what she gave it to me for. I was expecting for them because they did say, and I go back to the place that they would help me find a place, but they were too busy and so stressed. They were there to help the people that were there. They're not there to help me find a place. They said, well, there's nothing really much we can provide for you. That was that. I can't expect some place that is not for that to help me because I was sent there under the pretenses of help. You guys don't understand what shelters are because caseworker that works here literally told you that shelters are not necessarily for you to get a job and get back on your feet. Not necessarily. The one that I was at was for navigation, which means navigating through housing, whether it be getting on disability or whether it be whatever plethora of situation that you have. It was not necessarily for getting a job.
Yeah, no, Tophia, we understand. We are not at all confused about the idea. There are more than one routes to get out of a shelter. It doesn't necessarily have to be you getting a great job and just paying your way out of there. It could be Section 8, it could be different benefits. benefit systems if you have an addiction or something, or maybe you're an ex-con, it could end up being a halfway house. The problem is that you're not pursuing any of those routes. That's the issue. We're not saying you have to get out of the shelter in this specific way. We're saying you should be doing literally anything to get out of the shelter, period. And whether or not your last couple of dollars is going towards housing, nobody likes to see a beggar spending their money on dumb shit. There was a homeless person that lived on my corner, and every single day they were asking for loose change, and I was giving it to them. Then one day I saw them standing on that same corner wearing a brand new pair of Jordans, but they were still begging for loose change. My perspective on whether I should give it to them or not would change. And that's how people feel about you, Toph. You're begging every day saying, I need housing so bad, I need food so bad, somebody please give me a few dollars. And then you get brand new Winnie the Pooh pajamas from Temu, and people become just a little bit less sympathetic.
Some people lack the common sense of what certain shelters are for, and it is also for housing people that can't necessarily afford housing. That is something that people don't have the common sense for. Like, when rich people are born of money, they're rich. When people are born of poverty, they stay poor. That's how the system is built.
I understand that there's, like, some truth to what she's saying there. Like, yes, the system does favor people who already have money. And yeah, it's definitely more difficult for somebody who's poor to end up rich than for somebody who's born rich to end up rich. I'm not arguing about that. But at a certain point, where does any personal responsibility enter the equation? Are you just going to be miserable forever because the deck is stacked against you? Is this how you're going to spend the rest of your life? You're going to every single day just say that the reason that everything sucks in your life is because the world isn't fair, and it's never going to get any better because the world isn't fair? Because I don't know about you guys, but that just sounds like a shitty existence. Like, the vast majority of people out there, whether they have money or not, have been through some really hard stuff at one point or another in their life. There's something unfair that affects every single one of us. And this idea that, because everything's unfair, instead of her taking any responsibility for her own life, she should just sit there at the shelter, beg for money, and wait for something to change in, like, I don't know, the political system that will make things easier and more equitable for her, just doesn't make any sense as a solution to me. And the reason it doesn't make any sense is because nothing that she's saying is actually how she feels. How she actually feels is, I'm an internet celebrity and I shouldn't have to go work at the Wendy's because I'm too good for that. That's what it really comes down to. But she knows that she would come off as very unsympathetic if she said that, and that nobody would want to give her any money, so instead she has to go on this whole tirade about the unfairness of the system.
System is built poorly. So when explaining things, no, shelters are not necessarily for people to get a job. Shelters are to house people until they work on their housing or move forward, because here, as far as many places, a lot of shelters require 3 to 4 times the rent. And if you don't have 3 to 4 times the rent, you can't rent. And that is what's hurting a lot of people from getting places. Again, the reason why they charge 3 to 4 times the rent is they really want to make sure people can pay the rent. But it hurts people who follow under low income when it comes to making the minimum wage and living off of minimum wage. That is something that doesn't help people. And frankly, people need to do more research before speaking, because necessarily it's not only just for jobs, it's for people to do a plethora of other things, not just look for.
So I'm not going to play the next couple clips in her story because it's just more of her saying the same shit, complaining about how nothing is fair and nothing will ever get any better until the entire world can join hands, unite their resources, and give them all to Tophia so that she can live a good life. Unfortunately, the one true thing that she said during any of those rants is that Albuquerque is an incredibly dangerous city. We've already seen how bad it can get living on the streets in a car, and now she's really just out there on her own, so I'm interested to see where she actually ends up in the long term. I don't know if maybe she's gonna swallow her pride and reach out to some family, or if there's another shelter that can take her in. I do know she's still in contact with a social worker, even since being kicked out of the shelter, so hopefully we'll have another update for you very soon. She is incredibly chronically online, so I can't imagine if there's even a minor update that she won't talk all about it on TikTok or on her Instagram story right away, so I'm sure we'll find out sooner rather than later. But that's going to be the Toph update for today. If you guys like the content, please like and subscribe, and until next time, stay indoors, stay off Temu, and have a good one.